and supply chain experience in top OEM and auto ancillaries. He has worked with companies like PPG Asian Paints, Tata Motors and Mahindra with exposure in both operations and strategy. Everyone, please welcome Mr. Manoj Mule, Senior General Manager, Supply Chain Functional Excellence and Transformation, Central Supply Chain at Cummins, India.
Good morning all. I'm audible? We'll wait for a minute. I think some people are coming in. Okay. So I think right from morning, I think we are getting different insights in supply chain in terms of digitalization, in terms of landscape of transportation, in terms of the right mix, green supply chain, dashboards. So this topic is tech transformation for supply chain. So supply chain, everybody knows how dynamic it is, how uncertain it is. And unless and until we have that end-to-end visibility as real-time as possible, we may end up in not fulfilling customer requirement or loss of revenue, or we might fulfill the customer demand but might miss on the cost targets. So either of one of these stakeholders might be dissatisfied. And supply chain is always a kind of pressure function to fulfill the requirement of all the stakeholders. And to meet all these requirements, unless and until we embrace technology, latest tools, to have our supply chain, to ensure the supply chain visibility as real-time as possible, we may not be able to respond proactively. So I'm going to cover this topic. So first I'll start with typical supply chain, right? This is the tech transformation is a heavy topic, so we'll we go into the complex mode in the last slide. So we'll start with the basic supply chain, right? So entire supply chain end-to-end, we can divide into three categories. First, the middle portion is the operation where the value addition, real value addition happens, right? All the raw materials are getting converted into the finished goods which are required for the customer. So one is the upstream supply chain, wherein we get the material from supplier. So supplier till our factories or till our master distribution centers. And then there is a downstream supply chain where the finished goods, once they are ready, we ship to our end customers either directly or through the distribution channel. However, most of us might agree, right? Whenever we come to the work in the morning and you come with a pre-decided agenda that today I will do this 10 tasks, right? Even though you are good at time management, even though you are good at making to-do list, planning one day early, and you sit with your to-do list, how many of us are able to do what we have decided to do for that day? Hardly few. Because the supply chain function itself is like that. It is bringing daily, I think, uncertainties, daily surprises it is bringing. And your agenda is always hijacked based on the new surprises coming on a daily basis. So the surprises like whatever the finished goods you produce for the customer, there can be certain change in the customer demand. So whatever you produce is not required, and whatever is not produced, that is required. So everybody is running to produce that. So there is always a bullwhip effect in the system. So the customer or our sales and marketing team or the dealers, they might be having some fear factor that I may not get because of the constraint in the system. I may not get what I want. So they always want to play safe. So there will be inflated demand. There can be some customers or some dealers who might be giving genuine demand. So it is very hard to differentiate genuine demand versus inflated demand because the factory resources, the raw materials, all are limited. So these are the certain dynamics on a kind of downstream supply chain. Within factory also, we might incur surprises like we might produce a finished good and a huge batch got rejected because of XYZ reason, either because of the internal process issue or the supplier issue. So that will put a pressure on the entire system to replace by a good stock. However, there can be other operational challenges like whatever the production plan, if it is to make 500 cars or 500 engines or whatever product you are making, there might be absenteeism, there might be machine breakdown, so that may not be achieved. So that is again creating a pressure. So every day, these are the uncertainties in supply chain. And in the upstream supply chain where we have some reliable suppliers, at the same time we have some unreliable suppliers. They used to give some surprises in terms of quantities. And whatever quantity they supply might get rejected at the incoming stage. So in short, these are some flavors of daily surprises in supply chain, which always put supply chain team on toes. And they have to get into the firefighting mode. Now, while all these things are happening, how many of us agree to this statement? So companies don't compete, their supply chain competes. So Amazon, Flipkart, we know who is standing first, right? Even though both are e-commerce, they are giant. But the natural preference when you go to your smartphone, first generally, personally I go to the Amazon, and then if something is not there, I go to Flipkart. So Amazon, because of its e-commerce, supply chain agility, visibility, the kind of notification, the commitment to the delivered promise is high, hence it is becoming a preferred choice. So in our supply chain function, what customer want? He just want three simple things. Lowest, the finished goods in lowest possible cost, in shortest possible time, in the best quality. Very simple expectation, right? Is it possible? Possible? Is it easy? It's not that easy. It is possible. So this is important that we need to fulfill customer requirement on time with lowest possible cost with best quality, because that is how our business strategy, growth plans are developed. So we have to anyway enable that our strategic growth. So whatever the business leaders in the company are, supply chain is an enabler to meet their strategic objective. So how we can fulfill this requirement? So everybody nowadays is talking about building agile and resilient supply chain. So every company nowadays is talking about this. Then what is agile and resilient supply chain? What do we really mean by agile and resilient supply chain? There is one good slide, next slide, but before that I'll just go through what do we mean by agile and resilient supply chain. So any quick one or two members can just give the definition. Shortest? Good.
It is a real time.
Real time. Very good.
That is an agile, and resilience is a proactive.
Resilient is very good. Very good. So resilience and agile supply chain is first thing before I respond to the market dynamics. I first should know what is coming, right? What surprise is coming. So to sense the supply chain risks and disruptions in advance, some things we cannot predict, like Ukraine, Russia, or Hamas, Israel, all of a sudden, once it is started, we can anticipate. But there can be some things which we can predict those risks and disruptions coming our way. Then our supply chain should be flexible, quick enough to respond, not react. Respond to those risks proactively in shortest possible time. So, what are the enablers to become agile and resilient supply chain? So, supply chain visibility stands first. Like, unless and until I have visibility of end-to-end supply chain, which supplier can default, what is my supplier capacity risk, what is the demand forecast accuracy, inventory analytics, which item may get stock out, right? So, unless and until you have this visibility, you may not be able to take an informed call in advance. Flexibility, if one finished good volume is dropped, then how fast I can shift to produce another product to fulfill the customer demand? Am I having all the raw material? Is my manufacturing system capable to change the line? Or can I change the production plan in a short span of time, whether my entire supply chain is ready? So that is what flexibility, collaboration with all cross-functional teams, as well as external stakeholders, and control towers in terms of process control and control towers. So building agile and resilient supply chain, is it easy? Yes, no? It's very easy. It is as easy as this. So this is the formula to build agile and resilient and cost-effective supply chain. And these are our executives who are building supply chain strategy to meet all those. So this is a bit funny, but everybody is getting into that constant dilemma when we say agile and resilient, what I should do actually. Everybody is getting lost actually. So it is really time for all the experts to sit together in the organization, map out their end-to-end supply chain, break into 3 categories, break into different sub-functions of supply chain, and then identify which all the technology enablers I can build into respective. There is no tool which can handle end-to-end supply chain for planning, logistics, transportation, warehouse, manufacturing automation. So we have to adopt best tools in different pockets and then stitching them together to draw meaningful information to make our supply chain agile and resilient. So to explain that, again I am coming to the typical industry supply chain material and information which everybody might be knowing right from their day one in supply chain. But in the next slide, I am going to explain how we can overlay various technological tools in different functions or different pockets of supply chain to at least have a good mix in terms of a good package of visible supply chain or end-to-end supply chain. So left side, our business starts with customers. So all customers are mapped either to a particular depot or dealer wherein they are getting their demand fulfilled. These depots are connected to the regional distribution centers. These regional distribution centers are catered from the factory or master distribution center. So that's how the demand flow. In the factory, I have finished good warehouse from where I ship the material. Then based on the new requirement, I will plan my production. For that, the fulfillment of raw material will happen from the raw material store. This is just a schematic diagram. Then when I prepare my production plan, I run MRP, the schedule will go to the supplier. There can be first set of supplier. Then also there are some tier 2 suppliers or a consultation center where we are getting some few suppliers are from that particular zone or region or Europe, America. They might be supplying to trading company. From that trading company, it can be consolidated in a container for logistic optimization. And then that can be coming to the plants. And then based on the information flow, so information is basically demand flow, production plan, material requirement. And then based on the material requirement or material schedules to the supplier, supplier starts shipping the material back, and that's how the raw material is getting converted into the finished goods, and they are distributed in the distribution channel. So it looks simple, but because of inefficiency in the system, there are a lot of dynamics like whatever we explained. Like for example, one finished good, based on the previous demand, I ship to one depot in Jammu Kashmir. But by the time the material reaches, that demand is dropped. Whether the same material is now required in Kanyakumari. I'm just giving an exaggerated example. So again, we need to move that material from Jammu Kashmir to Kanyakumari. So all these dynamics play, but this looks simple. Now, through the technology transformation, how we can try to make the life easy so that we are better placed to respond such uncertainty in better way. So the same diagram is now zoomed in with respect to the typical flow. And then against each facets of supply chain, which tools or which technologies are better, we can place it so that it will help us to meet our objective. So starting with this is the downstream supply chain. So right from demand. So this blue line is covering the span of that particular application. So the first is demand sensing. So lot of FMCG industries, right? Like even in Amazon, if you do some particular item search, right? Even you don't want to intend to buy it. If you search it, it will start populating, coming to your screen again and again till the time you buy it. So the demand sensing is one area where the potential demand conversion need to be planned in advance so that the company is better equipped to respond to those. So there is a probability attached. How many searches are there? In that, what is the probability of converting those searches into the actual orders? So this is much before the customer making the mind. So one is the demand sensing, where we can utilize this AI/ML tool, which will help us the data as oil we saw in the previous presentation. Statistical demand forecasting. All these days, people are from the sales and marketing, they are putting their manual judgment, experience, giving the forecast in Excel. And that may not be having very well thought cyclicality, seasonality, the growth trajectory may not be built into that. So the forecast may be inaccurate. So this statistical demand forecasting tool might help us to give at a click of a button. It will incorporate all those factors. All we have to do is just load the historical sales or consumption, and then it will forecast. On that forecast, I can do modification that is still much better than the previous way. Multi-echelon inventory optimization. So especially in the FMCG industry, when I produce the goods, at which form, which location, what quantity I need to store. Unless and until we have that optimum strategy, inventory might be lying in wrong location and we still may lose the game. So if my finished goods in the factory and customer want in Kanyakumari and it is not delivered in 2 days, he might go to the other customer. So which product, in which form, where it should be stored, this algorithm also we can fulfill through multi-echelon inventory optimization. And advanced demand planning means considering all these facets, my demand forecasting, demand planning, there can be some scenarios like post-COVID, how the economy will shape. Unless and until those scenarios, the tool can build in, I may not be able to take that calculated call. BS4 to BS6, what will be the response in the market? So if these kind of tools are having those advanced intelligence built in, which will help us to go nearer, so it is much better than what we are doing currently. Transport management system, this we talked. So TMS is vastly being used in most of the industry. So it is helping the freight optimization, logistic cost optimization, the route planning, which size of the truck need to be deputed on which day based on the load. Then track and trace, so there are GPS system installed. So that every 2 hours, 4 hours, based on the frequency, we can get the status of the truck. And freight bill audit. So as we are moving most of the consignment, so thousands of the invoice, nobody can check whether the logistic service provider has billed it correctly. So this will also take care of that. Then coming the central portion, so once the demand portion is fulfilled, how I am doing the production planning in most optimum way, considering all the constraints in the system. So advanced planning system, so advanced supply chain planning or JDA. JDA is now Blue Yonder. So they have all those constraints inbuilt in this tool so that the holiday pattern, the risks, the constraints, a particular machine can produce only 10 FG back to back. It cannot produce more than that, so how we should plan the batches. So all those constraints are baked in so that based on this demand, my production plan is also automatically rolled out. And based on that, my MRP is sent to the supplier. So while rolling out that, I am also considering the RCCP, capacity planning, my internal capacity, which line, how many engines it can produce. So which supplier, what is the maximum constraint so that I cannot plan my production. So all those things are baked. So manually it is very difficult to consider all these factors on a daily basis if you have to run it on a daily basis. Inventory analytics, what if scenario? If some raw material is short, then I again will check the bill of material, which engine I can produce if this material is short. So these kind of tools, ready-made suggest that, okay, this material is short, then you can produce these 3 options. Then, okay, I can select, okay, this is the platinum customer or primary customer. For this product, the margin is good. So if this material is short, then I can shift the production to this. And finally, the last portion is the supplier collaboration. So there also, unless and until we embrace this digitalization, our schedules, what we are producing on a daily basis, we are running the MRP on a daily basis, those are communicated to supplier through online portal. Supplier can promise those schedules, so that is again visible to me, instead of me checking to the buyer कि कल के production के लिए कितने supplier का material आ रहा है. So whatever the promising is there, that I can utilize for my decision making. Then advance shipment notice for the goods in transit. Supplier capacity study, whenever we are increasing the capacity or going to ramp up the production, we can ask the supplier to declare the capacity in the tool. I can compile rather than sending mail to 1,000 mail suppliers and compiling. Again, TMS for the raw material. In the factories, we can implement WMS system, which will help us to utilize our warehousing more efficiently and effectively. Handheld terminals, so that you can, when you are moving the material from store to the line side, I can book the material on a real-time basis rather than waiting for the shift end. Industry 4.0 within the factory environment. So condition-based maintenance, so that I cannot get the surprise of sudden breakdown maintenance. So my machines are monitored so that it will give a pre-alert for the maintenance and I can take the call for maintenance. Finally, RFID. So all the returnable packaging, expandable packaging and returnable packaging, wherever we are having a returnable packaging, unless and until those packaging are rotated in a timely manner, it will choke up in one location and it will stop your supply chain. So this RFID will help us how many packaging are stuck in which point, so that we can expedite those. Same is for raw material and FG. And finally, in the end, robotic process automation. It is applicable to any process where people are doing routine. So most of the supply chain people are spending 2 to 3 hours to generate the shortage list, rather than working on the shortages, talking to the supplier. So if these kind of reports are automated, this is just example. So what is a cumbersome work? People are spending huge amount of time. That can be automated so that they can utilize the human intelligence and more productive work. Similarly, analytics. So inventory analytics, so descriptive analytics, predictive analytics, prescriptive analytics. So even the tool suggests that what part from which supplier, how much you should keep and how much you are keeping. So this is helping us to improve our working capital as well as improve our stock out rates. So this is just overall map of how we can migrate to the digitalization and make our supply chain more visible and more responsive. So these are the foundational processes wherein everyone need to introspect. I will not spend time. These are unless these foundational processes are in place, I cannot migrate to the advanced version of digitalization. So last slide, journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So let us take the first step in respect to industry. Thank you. Yeah.